The biggest difference between Kentucky and states where Juneteenth is recognized is paid time off.
That's right. Shaded in yellow on this map here, you can see states where some state workers got paid time off today. It's all state workers in the 3 states shaded in red. So what about Kentucky? Well, Kentucky is one of 18 states with neither. WKYT photojournalist Darnell Crenshaw talked to several experts on the issue. Some recognize the day, the state observes it, but Juneteenth is not a paid holiday for state workers. We talked to 3 historians, a local president of the NAACP, and a state senator to get their take on the status of Juneteenth as a state holiday and some historical myths associated with the day. State Senator Gerald Neal, a Democrat from Louisville, has made several attempts to get legislation passed with no success.
It's one of those things, like much legislation, particularly this kind of legislation that doesn't have broad priority in terms of what we do.
Senate President Robert Stivers, a Republican, gave us a statement saying, quote, in 2005, the Kentucky General Assembly enacted legislation that requires the governor to proclaim each June 19th Juneteenth National Freedom Day. I supported that bipartisan effort then and still do today, end quote. But some are questioning the holdup.
It's a shame that it hasn't been done.
Be reminded we're in a formerly slave state, and we still see the vestiges of that.
Disappointed, and also makes me feel that we've got a lot of work to do.
Progress is being made, but there's still a lot of room to go.
And these experts say Juneteenth needs to be taught in its full context.
It's more than about having a picnic. It should be a time of enlightenment, a time of reading.
After June 19th, 1865 in Galveston, Texas, slavery continued here in the Commonwealth.
Slavery remained legal in 2 Union border states, and the other one was Delaware. So both Delaware and Kentucky were holding out to the bitter end.
I found that black people were still being sold on the auction block in Lexington in the early 1870s.
I mean, I think people need to understand that it wasn't like a light switch being flipped. It just wasn't all one thing and then all the other, and everybody was, happy and enjoying all the fruits of our nation necessarily.
In December of 1865, Kentucky was one of the last states to free its enslaved. Could it be the last to make it an official state holiday?
There's a real possibility that it might not be passed.
So I think it will happen. I just don't think it'll happen by next year.
And we have to convince others that it's as important as we believe it to be. And I think ultimately we will be successful.
Senator Stivers also says he has expressed support for State Representative George Brown's proposed Juneteenth legislation during the 2023 session, but he said unfortunately it did not make it to the Senate before the session adjourned.